Some wounds never truly heal. They just learn to stay quiet. Colby thought he'd made peace with his ex-wife leaving, with raising their son alone, with the empty space she left behind. Then he saw her at a downtown intersection, pregnant. The world stopped. They'd been divorced for 2 years. The baby couldn't be his. But when he finally worked up the courage to confront her, she told him something that shattered everything. The child was conceived before they split. She'd been hiding the truth all along, protecting him from something he wasn't ready to face. What secret could be worth tearing a family apart? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm clock rattled at 5:30, the same as it had every weekday morning for the past 2 years. Colby's hand shot out from under the blanket, silencing it before the second buzz could wake Bennett in the next room. 50 years old, and he still woke like he was back in his 20s, alert before his eyes opened. The difference now was the ache in his lower back and the stiffness in his knees that took those first few steps to work out. He sat on the edge of his bed in the small apartment, listening. The building was old, the walls thin enough that he could hear Mrs. Caldwell's television humming through the floor below. This was his life now. A 2-bedroom walk-up in a working-class neighborhood where everyone knew everyone's business, where the corner store owner called him by name, and where rent was just barely manageable on a construction worker's salary. The coffee maker sputtered in the kitchen while Colby prepared Bennett's lunch. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, pretzels, juice box. He'd gotten good at this, the routines of single fatherhood. There was a rhythm to it now, a comfort in the predictability. Wake, coffee, lunch prep, wake Bennett, breakfast, school drop-off, work, school pickup, homework, dinner, bedtime. It wasn't the life he'd imagined, but it was a good life. Honest, simple. Bennett emerged at 6:15, dark hair sticking up in 3 directions. 8 years old, with his mother's green eyes and Colby's stubborn chin. He shuffled to the kitchen table in his pajamas. "Morning, buddy," Colby said, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of him. "Morning, Dad. Can we get a dog?" Colby smiled. "3rd time this week. Maybe when we're in a bigger place." After breakfast, they walked 3 blocks to Riverside Elementary. At the school gate, Bennett hugged him and ran toward his friends. Colby watched until he disappeared inside, then turned toward the bus stop. The construction site was in the north part of town, a new commercial development. Colby had been on the crew for 6 months, working under Russell, a 63-year-old foreman with forearms like steel cables and a heart bigger than his gruff exterior suggested. "Morning, Colby," Russell called. "Need you on the 2nd floor today." The work was hard but satisfying. There was something honest about building, about seeing progress at the end of each day. Colby's hands were calloused, his shoulders strong despite his age. He worked alongside men 10, 15 years younger and kept pace. During lunch, his phone buzzed. "Eugene, his older brother. Beer tonight?" "My place." "Can't. Got Bennett." "Bring him. I'll order pizza." By 3:30, Colby caught the bus back and arrived at Riverside Elementary just as the bell rang. Bennett bounded out, grinning. "I got an A on my math test." "That's my boy." Colby ruffled his hair. "Uncle Eugene wants us over for pizza tonight." They walked home together, Bennett chattering about his day. This was the best part, these walks, this connection. At the apartment, Bennett tackled homework while Colby showered. By 5:30, they were in Colby's 15-year-old Ford, heading to Eugene's. Eugene lived in a small house with a detached garage converted into a mechanic shop. When Colby pulled in, Eugene was wiping his hands on a rag. "There's my favorite nephew." "I'm your only nephew," Bennett laughed. Inside, they ate pizza and drank soda. The conversation was easy, familiar. Eugene asked about work, about school, about whether Colby had been dating. "No time for that," Colby deflected. "You're 50, not dead. Been 2 years, brother. You're allowed to move on." Colby didn't answer. The divorce had taken something from him, not just his wife, but his trust, his willingness to be vulnerable again. Simone had left without warning, without real explanation. One day she was there, the next she wasn't. The custody battle had been brief. She'd barely fought for Bennett, which had hurt the boy more than anything. Later, after Bennett fell asleep on Eugene's couch, the brothers talked quietly. "He still asks about her," Colby admitted. "Not often, but enough. I don't know what to tell him. Tell him the truth. That she had her reasons, even if we don't understand them." They loaded sleeping Bennett into the truck around 9. At home, Colby carried him to bed, then stood in the doorway watching his son sleep. This boy was everything. His purpose, his anchor, his reason to keep going. In his own room, Colby opened the glove compartment of his dresser where he kept important documents. Inside was a photograph, his wedding day. He and Simone, young and smiling. They'd been so sure, so certain of forever. He studied her face. Simone with her green eyes and dark hair, her smile that had caught his attention at a friend's barbecue 13 years ago. They'd married fast, had Bennett within a year. For a while it had been good. Then something shifted. She became distant, preoccupied. Started working longer hours. When he'd asked what was wrong, she'd say she was tired, stressed. Then one day, he came home to find half her clothes gone and a note on the kitchen table. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." That was it. No explanation, no conversation, no chance to fix whatever had broken. The divorce had been ugly in its simplicity. She'd wanted out, wanted it fast. He'd fought for Bennett, terrified she'd take him. But she hadn't fought back. She'd just let go. Signed the papers, agreed to minimal custody, and disappeared. A few supervised visits in the first months, then nothing. Changed her number. Bennett's birthday cards came with no return address. Colby put the photo back and closed the drawer. Tomorrow would be another day. Another alarm at 5:30. Another routine. Another small step forward. He'd built a good life from the ruins of his marriage. Bennett was happy, healthy, thriving. That was what mattered. He turned off the light and climbed into bed, unaware that tomorrow everything would change. The next day started like any other. But Colby couldn't shake the restlessness that had settled in his chest overnight. He dreamed of Simone, fragmented images of her walking away, her voice calling his name, her face blurred and distant. He woke disoriented, the dream clinging to him like morning fog. At the construction site, his mind wandered. Russell noticed during the morning break, pulling him aside near the tool shed. "You all right, Colby? You seem somewhere else today. Just didn't sleep well." Colby forced a smile. "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. Something gnawed at him, a feeling he couldn't name. By lunch, he'd smashed his thumb with a hammer and mismeasured a wall frame twice. Russell sent him home early. "Go clear your head. Come back fresh tomorrow." Colby didn't argue. He caught the early bus and found himself downtown instead of heading home. He needed to walk, to think, to shake off whatever this feeling was. The October afternoon was crisp, leaves skittering across sidewalks, the sun low and golden. He walked past shop windows and cafes, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the city move around him. Business people hurried past with coffee cups and briefcases. A street musician played guitar on the corner. Life happening, ordinary and constant. Then he saw her. At first he thought his mind was playing tricks, that the dream from last night had followed him into daylight. But no, it was her, Simone, standing at the intersection of Fifth and Market, waiting for the light to change, and she was pregnant. Visibly, unmistakably pregnant. Colby stopped walking. His heart hammered against his ribs. The world narrowed to just her. The dark hair he remembered, the familiar way she shifted her weight, the curve of her belly pressing against her coat. 6 months along, maybe 7, the light changed. She started across the street. Colby's feet moved before his brain caught up, carrying him forward, his pulse roaring in his ears. Simone! She turned, and her face went pale. Those green eyes, Bennett's eyes, widened with shock and something else. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. Colby. Her voice was barely a whisper. They stood on the sidewalk while people flowed around them like water around stones. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The moment stretched, taut and fragile. "You're pregnant," Colby finally said, stating the obvious because he couldn't think of anything else. She wrapped her arms around herself protectively. "Yes, how—" He stopped, shook his head. We've been divorced for 2 years. I know, so it can't be. It's yours, Colby. The words came out flat, exhausted. The baby is yours. His mind went blank. Then it raced. Math didn't work. Timeline didn't work. They'd been apart for 2 years. She'd left 2 years ago. Unless, that's impossible, he said, but his voice wavered. I was pregnant when I left. She looked away, down at her feet. 3 months along. I didn't tell you. The sidewalk felt unsteady beneath him. You were pregnant with my child and you didn't tell me? I couldn't. You couldn't? Anger flared hot in his chest. You walked out on our family, on our son, and you were carrying another child. My child? Please, not here. She glanced around at the people passing, at the curious looks they were drawing. Can we talk somewhere private? No, tell me now. Tell me why you'd do that. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, they were wet. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? From being a father. From having a say in my own child's life. From watching me die? Her voice broke. I thought I was dying, Colby. The words hit him like a physical blow. He stared at her, speechless. She fumbled in her purse, pulled out a crumpled napkin, and scribbled an address. Meet me here tomorrow. 4 o'clock. I'll tell you everything. I promise. She pressed the napkin into his hand. I know you have no reason to trust me, but please, just one conversation. Before he could respond, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Colby stood frozen, the napkin clutched in his fist, his world tilting sideways. He made it to a bench before his knees gave out. Sat there for an hour, maybe longer, trying to process. Simone was pregnant, with his child. Had been pregnant when she left. Thought she was dying. None of it made sense. All of it made a terrible, awful kind of sense. Finally, as the sun dipped below the buildings and the air grew cold, he pulled out his phone and called Eugene. Can you watch Bennett tonight? Something came up. Sure, brother. Everything okay? No, Colby said honestly. But it will be. He picked up Bennett from school, drove him to Eugene's, made up a story about a work emergency. Bennett hugged him goodbye, trusting and innocent. Colby watched him run inside, then sat in his truck, staring at the crumpled napkin. The address was across town. An apartment building in a quiet neighborhood. Tomorrow at 4, he drove home in a daze. Made himself dinner but couldn't eat. Sat on the couch, staring at the wall. His phone buzzed with texts from Eugene checking in, but he didn't answer. At midnight, he finally went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. He lay in the dark, questions circling like vultures. Why didn't she tell him? What illness? Why leave? Why hide the pregnancy? Why stay away for 2 years? And underneath all the questions, one thought kept surfacing, unbidden and unwelcome. He was going to be a father again. Somewhere in this city, his daughter was growing, preparing to be born. A daughter he didn't know existed until today. He pressed his palms against his eyes and tried to breathe. Tomorrow. He'd get answers tomorrow. He had to believe that, had to hold on to something solid in the chaos, but nothing felt solid anymore. Everything he thought he understood about the past 2 years had just shattered like glass. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Colby went through the motions at work, measuring, cutting, nailing, but his hands moved on autopilot while his mind spun in circles. Russell gave him questioning looks but didn't pry. By 3 o'clock, Colby couldn't take it anymore. Need to leave early again, he told Russell. Family matter, Russell nodded, understanding in his weathered face. Go on. Take care of what you need to. Colby drove across town with the crumpled napkin on his dashboard. The address burned into his memory. The neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined streets with older apartment buildings. He found the address, a modest 3-story brick building with a small courtyard. He sat in his truck for 10 minutes, gathering courage. Finally, at 4 o'clock exactly, he climbed out and pressed the buzzer for apartment 2B. It's me, he said when the intercom crackled. The door buzzed open. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Second floor, apartment 2B. He knocked. Simone opened the door. In daylight, in her own space, she looked different than she had on the street. Tired, yes, but calmer. She wore a loose sweater that draped over her belly, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Come in, she said softly. The apartment was small but clean. Sparse furniture, minimal decoration. A few boxes in the corner, some still unpacked. Baby items stacked by the window. A bassinet still in its packaging, unopened diapers, tiny clothes folded neatly. She gestured to the couch. He sat, feeling awkward and angry and confused all at once. She lowered herself into a chair across from him, one hand resting protectively on her belly. "I don't know where to start," she said. "Start with the truth. All of it." She took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I started having symptoms. Headaches, fatigue, dizzy spells. I thought it was stress. Then the pain started. I finally went to a doctor, and they found a mass, a tumor pressing against my spine. Colby felt his chest tighten. They ran tests. More tests. It was malignant, aggressive. They wanted to start treatment immediately. Radiation, possibly surgery. Then I found out I was pregnant. Her voice cracked. 3 months pregnant with your child. Why didn't you tell me? Because the doctor said the treatment could harm the baby. That if I wanted to keep her, I'd have to delay treatment. And delaying meant the tumor could grow, could spread. They gave me odds, percentages. None of them were good. She reached beside her chair and pulled out a folder, handed it to him. Medical records, hospital letterhead. Diagnosis reports with words he barely understood but could feel the weight of stage 3, metastatic risk, survival rate. His hands shook as he read. This was real. This had happened. I had to choose. Simone continued, tears streaming down her face now, between the baby and my own life. And I couldn't put that on you, Colby. I couldn't ask you to choose. And I couldn't bear the thought of Bennett watching me get sicker, of him losing his mother slowly. Painfully, so you just left. I thought it would be easier, cleaner, a quick break instead of a slow goodbye. I thought I was going to die and I wanted you to move on, to give Bennett a stable life without the trauma of watching me waste away. Colby set the folder down, his vision blurred. You made that decision for all of us. I know it was wrong. I was terrified and I made a terrible choice. She wiped her eyes. I went to stay with my cousin in another state. Started treatment. It was worse than I imagined, the pain, the sickness. I could barely get out of bed some days, but the baby stayed strong. She kept growing, kept fighting, and then a miracle. After the baby was born, she stopped, shook her head. No, that's not right. I'm still pregnant. I meant, she took a shaky breath, the tumor, during the pregnancy, something changed. The doctors don't fully understand it, but it stopped growing. Then it started shrinking. By my 3rd trimester, they were able to operate. They removed it successfully. Colby stared at her, trying to comprehend. You're okay. You're going to live? The prognosis is good, very good. But the recovery was long, complicated. I was in and out of hospitals, dealing with infections, with complications from the surgery. I wanted to reach out, but I was so unstable, so uncertain. What if I relapsed? What if I got you and Bennett's hopes up and then died anyway? That wasn't your choice to make alone. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm so sorry, Colby. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was doing the right thing. Colby stood, paced to the window. His emotions warred, fury at her deception, relief that she was alive, grief for the lost time, fear for what came next. How long until the baby comes? 6 weeks, maybe less. He turned to face her. And then what? What's your plan? I don't have one. I'm alone. No job right now, living off disability payments. I'm terrified. She looked up at him. I don't expect anything from you. I don't expect forgiveness. But she's your daughter, and you deserve to know. Colby crossed back to the couch, sat down heavily. He thought of Bennett, of the family they'd lost, of this child growing inside Simone who carried his blood, his name. I need time, he finally said. Time to process this, to figure out what it means. I understand. He stood to leave, paused at the door. Does she have a name? Simone smiled sadly. Not yet. I thought maybe you'd want to help choose. Colby nodded and left, his mind reeling with impossible choices. Colby drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. The medical records sat in the passenger seat, tangible proof that everything Simone had said was true. She'd been dying. She'd made an impossible choice. She'd survived. None of that made the abandonment hurt less. At home, he found Bennett's latest report card on the kitchen counter. He'd forgotten to sign it. As he picked it up, a note from Bennett's teacher fell out, written in careful script. Bennett is doing well academically, but I've noticed he seems withdrawn during discussions about families. He asked me today when his mother might come back. Please let me know if there's anything we should be aware of or any way I can support him. The words hit Colby like a punch to the gut. He'd thought Bennett was adjusting, healing, but his son had been quietly suffering, hiding his pain to protect his father, just like Colby had been doing for him. He sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. What was he supposed to do? How was he supposed to explain any of this to an 8-year-old? That evening he picked Bennett up from Eugene's. His brother took one look at his face and pulled him aside while Bennett played with Eugene's old toolbox in the garage. You look like you've seen a ghost. Close. Enough. Colby ran a hand through his hair. It was Simone. She's pregnant. The baby's mine. Eugene's eyebrows shot up. How is that possible? She was 3 months along when she left. Didn't tell me because she was diagnosed with a tumor. Thought she was going to die and wanted to spare us watching it happen. Good Lord. Eugene leaned against his workbench. Is she okay now? Says she is. Had surgery. They got the tumor out. Colby's voice was hollow. 2 years, Eugene. She kept this from me for 2 years. That's a lot to carry. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to walk away, to protect Bennett from more hurt. But that baby, his voice caught. That's my daughter. And Bennett, he's still hoping his mother will come back. I saw it in his teacher's note. Eugene was quiet for a long moment. You remember when Dad raised us alone? After Mom left? Of course. You remember what he used to say? That being a parent meant making the hard choices even when they hurt? I remember. That boy in there needs his mother, Colby. If she's willing and able to be in his life, you can't deny him that. Not because of your pride or your anger. It's not pride, isn't it? She lied, yes. She made a terrible decision out of fear. But she was dying, brother. Fear makes people do things that don't make sense later. Eugene gripped his shoulder. I'm not saying forgive her tomorrow, but maybe don't slam the door on the possibility. That night, after Bennett fell asleep, Colby sat on his bed, staring at his phone. Finally, he texted Simone, "We need to talk again." Tomorrow? Her response came immediately. Yes, thank you. They met at a small diner the next afternoon, neutral territory where they could talk without the weight of her apartment or his memories pressing down. Simone ordered tea she barely touched. Colby drank coffee and tried to organize his swirling thoughts. I talked to my brother, he started, and I've been thinking. But Bennett, she looked up, hope and fear mingling in her eyes. He misses you. His teacher says he asks about you. I thought he was fine, but he's been hiding it. Colby wrapped his hands around his mug. He needs his mother, Simone. If you're really back, if you're really healthy, I am. I swear I am. Then we need to figure this out. Not for us, but for him. And for, he gestured at her belly. For her. Simone's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you being this generous. It's not generosity. It's what's right. He paused. But I need honesty from here on. No more secrets. No more decisions made without talking to me first. I promise. Complete honesty. They talked for 2 hours, planning carefully. They'd start slow. Phone calls between Simone and Bennett, then a meeting in a public place. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Give Bennett time to adjust. Over the next 2 weeks, Colby prepared Bennett gently. I've been talking to your mom. She wants to see you. Bennett's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? When? Where is she? Why did she leave? Is she coming home? The questions tumbled out faster than Colby could answer. He did his best, explaining that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, that his mom had been sick but was better now, that she loved him and missed him. Can I see her? Soon, buddy. We're working it out. Meanwhile, Colby visited Simone 3 more times. They talked about logistics, where she'd live after the baby came, how they'd manage co-parenting, what they'd tell Bennett about his sister. The conversations were awkward but necessary. 2 people learning to trust each other again after betrayal. On the 4th visit, Simone showed him an ultrasound photo. The image was grainy, black and white, but he could make out the tiny profile, a button nose, a curve of chin. "That's her," Simone said softly. "That's your daughter." Colby stared at the photo, emotion welling up. He'd seen these images before when Simone was pregnant with Bennett, but this felt different. This child had been a secret, hidden in fear and desperation. Now she was real, tangible, arriving soon. "I want to help," he heard himself say. "With bills, with baby things? Whatever you need. Colby, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. She's mine too." They scheduled the meeting with Bennett for the following Saturday at Riverside Park. Neutral ground, lots of open space, easy to leave if things got overwhelming. When Colby told Bennett that night, his son couldn't sit still. He asked 100 questions, drew pictures, packed a bag of things to show his mother, even though Colby said he didn't need to. That night, lying in bed, Colby felt the weight of what was coming. This fragile attempt at rebuilding something that had shattered. Could trust be rebuilt? Could a family be pieced back together after so much damage? He didn't know. But watching Bennett's excitement, remembering that ultrasound image, he knew he had to try. Saturday arrived with Bennett up before dawn, too excited to sleep. He changed his shirt 3 times, combed his hair without being asked, and kept checking the clock every 5 minutes. "When do we leave?" "Is it time yet?" "Another hour, buddy." Try to eat some breakfast, but Bennett could barely manage 2 bites of toast. Colby understood. His own stomach was twisted in knots, though he tried not to show it. This reunion could go a dozen different ways, and he had to be ready for all of them. They arrived at Riverside Park at 10. The morning was cool and bright, families scattered across the grass, children on swings and slides. Colby spotted Simone on a bench near the playground, wearing a blue cardigan that stretched over her belly. She stood when she saw them, one hand pressed to her lower back. Bennett froze, suddenly shy. He grabbed Colby's hand. "It's okay," Colby murmured. "Take your time." Simone walked toward them slowly, and Colby could see tears already streaming down her face. When she was 10 feet away, Bennett let go of Colby's hand and ran. Just ran straight into her arms. "Mom." She caught him, nearly stumbled from the impact and her balance, but held him tight. Both of them were crying. Bennett with his face buried in her shoulder, Simone with her cheek pressed to his hair. "I missed you so much," she whispered. So much? Why did you leave?" "Where were you?" "I was sick, sweetheart, but I'm better now." "I'm so sorry I was gone." Colby stood back, watching, his throat tight. Whatever anger he carried, whatever betrayal still burned, in this moment none of it mattered compared to the look on his son's face. Pure joy, pure relief. They spent the morning together. Simone pushed Bennett on the swings, walked with him to see the ducks at the pond, sat in the grass while he showed her his collection of interesting rocks. Colby trailed behind, giving them space, but staying close enough to hear their conversation. Bennett asked questions constantly. Where had she been? Was she really okay? When could he see her again? Could she come to his school play next month? Simone answered as honestly as she could without burdening him with adult complexities. Yes, she'd been in the hospital. Yes, she was healthy now. Yes, she wanted to see him as much as possible. And yes, she'd love to come to his school play. Around noon, they stopped for ice cream from a vendor cart. Bennett got chocolate, Simone vanilla, Colby coffee. They sat at a picnic table, Bennett between them, swinging his legs and grinning. "Mom, guess what? I'm really good at math now. Dad helps me with homework every night." "That's wonderful, honey. And I almost got a dog, but our apartment doesn't allow pets. But maybe when we get a bigger place." Simone glanced at Colby over Bennett's head. He saw the question there, the hope. He looked away. After ice cream, Bennett ran back to the playground. Simone and Colby stood near the fence, watching him climb on the jungle gym. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For this? For letting me see him. He needed this. Needed you. I won't disappear again. I promise. I'm holding you to that." She shifted, one hand on her belly, and winced slightly. "You okay?" "Just a kick." "She's active today," Simone smiled. "I think she knows her brother is close." Colby felt something shift in his chest. "Does he know? About the baby?" "Not yet. I didn't want to overwhelm him." But soon, maybe. They discussed timing, agreed to tell Bennett in another week or two, once he'd adjusted to having his mother back. Let him process one big change before adding another. 2 weeks later, Colby accompanied Simone to a prenatal appointment. It felt strange sitting in the waiting room together, like they were any other couple expecting a child. But they weren't. They were two broken people trying to navigate an impossible situation. In the exam room, the ultrasound technician moved the wand across Simone's belly. The monitor showed their daughter, bigger now, more defined. Colby watched her move, saw her tiny hand curl into a fist. "Everything looks great," the technician said. About 6 more weeks. After the appointment, they walked through a nearby park. Simone was quiet, thoughtful. "What are you thinking?" Colby asked. "About how none of this turned out like I planned. I thought I'd die alone, that you and Bennett would move on. Instead, I'm here, alive, about to have a daughter I never expected to meet." She stopped walking. "I know you're helping because it's the right thing to do. Because she's yours. But Colby, I don't know how to do this. Single motherhood, starting over, being in Bennett's life again. You're not alone." The words came out before he could think them through. "I mean, you have help." "Me, Eugene. We'll figure it out. Why are you doing this? After everything I did to you?" He thought about that. About Eugene's words, about Bennett's joy at the park, about that ultrasound image, because holding on to anger doesn't help anyone. And because that little girl deserves a father who's present, not one too busy being bitter to show up. Simone wiped her eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness. Maybe not. But she does." That night, Colby told Bennett about the baby. They sat on Bennett's bed, the lights dim, the day winding down. "You're going to be a big brother," Bennett's eyes went wide. "Really? When?" "About 6 weeks. Your mom is going to have a baby girl." "A sister?" Bennett's face split into a huge grin. "I'm getting a sister." "You are. Can I help take care of her? Can I teach her stuff?" "Absolutely." Bennett peppered him with questions. What would they name her? Could she share his room? Would she like dinosaurs? Until his excitement exhausted him, and he fell asleep mid-sentence. Colby pulled the blanket up to his chin and sat there in the dark, listening to his son breathe. A month ago, their life had been simple, predictable. Now everything was changing, expanding, getting complicated. But watching Bennett's joy, feeling that flutter of hope when he'd seen his daughter on the screen, maybe complicated wasn't always bad. Maybe broken things could be repaired into something different, but still good. He just had to trust enough to try. 4 weeks before the due date, Colby found himself at Simone's apartment most evenings after work. He'd bring takeout, help assemble baby furniture, attend appointments. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them could quite name. Not romantic, not quite healed, but functional, cooperative one evening, while Bennett was at Eugene's for a sleepover. Simone showed Colby something she'd been hesitant to share. Her journal, leather-bound and worn, filled with her handwriting. "I kept this during everything," she said, handing it to him. "I want you to read some of it." "So you understand," Colby opened to a marked page. "The date was from 2.5 years ago. The doctors gave me percentages today. Survival rates if I start treatment immediately, 60% chance I'll see 5 years. If I wait until after the baby is born, 40%, maybe less. I'm 3 months pregnant with Colby's child, and I have to choose between her life and mine. How do I make that choice? How do I tell him I'm choosing to risk death to give birth to a daughter he doesn't even know exists?" He turned the page. "I'm so afraid he'll hate me for leaving. But better hate than pity. Better anger than watching me waste away in a hospital bed while Bennett asks questions I can't answer. If I'm going to die, let me do it away from them. Let them remember me whole, not broken." Colby's hands trembled as he read entry after entry. Her terror, her pain, her desperate love for people she was trying to protect by disappearing. One entry made him stop breathing. Saw Bennett's picture today that Colby posted online. "He's gotten so tall. Lost his 2 front teeth. I wasn't there for that. I'll never stop hating myself for missing it. But if I die, at least they'll have each other. They won't be alone." He closed the journal, unable to read more. When he looked up, Simone was crying silently. I thought I was doing the right thing, she whispered. I thought mercy meant sparing you the pain of watching me die slowly. I would have stayed. Colby's voice was thick. No matter what. Through all of it. I know that now. But then, I was so scared, Colby. I couldn't think straight. The tumor, the pregnancy, the impossible choice. He moved to sit beside her on the couch, and for the first time in 2 years, he pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing, and he held her while she released years of carried grief. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I know you are. When her tears subsided, they talked. Really talked. About love and loss and regret. About the marriage they'd had and the people they'd become. About forgiveness and whether it was possible to rebuild trust from rubble. I loved you enough to let you go, Simone said. I thought that was mercy. I would have loved you enough to stay. That's what you didn't understand. Do you? She hesitated. Do you think you could ever forgive me? Really forgive me? Colby was quiet for a long time. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others, but I'm trying. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, but our daughter deserves a father who isn't eaten alive by bitterness. And Bennett deserves parents who can be in the same room without tension. The following Saturday, they brought Bennett to meet Simone again, this time at her apartment, so he could see where his mother lived, where his sister would be. Bennett explored every corner, asking questions about everything. Where will the baby sleep? In that bassinet. Simone pointed to the corner. Can I hold her when she's born? Of course. You're her big brother. What are we going to name her? Simone glanced at Colby. They hadn't discussed names yet. We're still deciding. Do you have any ideas? Bennett scrunched up his face, thinking hard. I like the name Aria. There's a girl in my class named Aria, and she's really nice. Aria, Simone repeated softly, looking at Colby. I like that. Colby nodded. Aria it is. That evening Bennett drew a picture. 4 stick figures holding hands. He labeled them carefully. Dad, Mom Bennett, baby Aria. He gave it to Simone, who taped it to her refrigerator and cried. The next week, Colby's landlord caught him in the hallway with an apologetic expression and unwelcome news. Rent's going up next month. Building costs, you understand. 200 more. Colby did the math in his head. With what he was already giving Simone for baby expenses, with Bennett's needs, with his truck needing new tires, the numbers didn't work. He'd have to pick up extra shifts, maybe take a second job. That night over dinner at Simone's, he mentioned it casually. She noticed his stress immediately. How much more? It's fine. I'll figure it out. Colby, you're already helping me. You can't. I'll manage. Let me help somehow. I could. She stopped, frustrated by her own limitations. I wish I could work. Contribute more. You're growing our daughter. That's contribution enough. But the financial pressure weighed on him. Russell noticed him volunteering for every available overtime shift. Eugene noticed him looking exhausted, running himself ragged. You can't do everything, Eugene warned. You're going to burn out. What choice do I have? Let people help. Stop trying to carry it all alone. That weekend, Russell called Colby into his office at the construction site. Colby expected a reprimand for something, but instead Russell handed him an envelope. What's this? Open it. Inside was a check, a bonus, Russell said, for reliable work and dedication. It was enough to cover 3 months of the increased rent. Russell, I can't. You can, and you will. You've got a family to take care of. Let folks help. Colby's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't mention it. Just keep showing up and doing good work. That evening, Colby sat in his truck outside Simone's apartment building, staring at the check. People kept surprising him. Eugene, Russell, even Simone herself. Maybe trust wasn't about never being hurt. Maybe it was about believing people were trying their best, even when they failed. He went upstairs and knocked. Simone answered. Aria presumably asleep inside her. Everything okay? Yeah. He smiled genuinely. Everything's going to be okay. For the first time in 2 years, he actually believed it. 2 weeks before Aria's due date, Colby arrived at Simone's apartment with boxes of newborn diapers and a car seat he'd found on sale. Simone had stepped out for a prenatal checkup, asking him to organize some files while she was gone. Insurance papers, medical records. Things she wanted sorted before the baby arrived. He worked methodically, creating piles on her kitchen table. Bills in one stack, medical documents in another, personal papers in a third. Then he found something that made him freeze. A legal document, unsigned, dated from 2.5 years ago. Custody transfer papers, giving him full parental rights to the unborn child in the event of Simone's death. His hands shook as he read through it. She'd planned everything. Guardianship, visitation rights for her extended family, even a small life insurance policy naming Bennett and the baby as beneficiaries. She'd truly believed she wouldn't survive. Beneath the custody papers was another document. An envelope addressed to him in Simone's handwriting, sealed but never sent. He stared at it for a long moment, then carefully opened it. The letter inside was dated 3 days before she'd left. Colby, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Not just gone from the house, but gone from this world. The baby, our daughter, is yours to raise. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you about her while I was alive. I'm sorry I left without explanation. I need you to know why. His vision blurred, but he kept reading. 5 years ago, before we met, I was in a relationship with someone named Derek Stillwater. He was charming at first, then controlling, then violent. It took me a year to escape. I changed my name, moved states, built a new life. That's when I met you, when I finally felt safe enough to start over. When I got sick, when the doctors found the tumor, they ran extensive tests. They found old injuries I'd never reported. Fractured ribs that healed wrong, scar tissue consistent with abuse. The doctor asked questions. I had to give them my medical history, my real name. Somehow Derek found out. He tracked me down, started calling, texting, showing up near our house. He said if I didn't come back to him, he'd make sure everyone I loved suffered. He threatened you. He threatened Bennett. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't risk him hurting our family. So I disappeared. Let him away from you and Bennett. Let him think I'd gone into hiding out of fear of him, not because I was dying. I thought if I vanished completely, he'd lose interest. That you'd be safe. Colby felt sick. He kept reading, his hands trembling. The pregnancy complicated everything. If Derek knew about the baby, he'd never leave me alone. He'd claim parental rights, use it to control me forever, or worse, use her to hurt me. So I hid. Stayed off the grid, used a different name at hospitals, kept myself invisible. The tumor was real. The threat to my life was real, but so was Derek. I was running from death in 2 forms, one inside my body, one stalking me from outside. If I survive the surgery, if I'm somehow still alive when this baby is born, I'll do everything I can to keep her safe from him. But if I don't make it, you need to know he exists. He's dangerous. Protect our children, Colby. Don't let him near them. I love you. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you this while I was alive. I'm sorry I ran instead of fighting. But I couldn't risk your life or Bennett's. Please understand. Always yours, Simone. The letter slipped from Colby's fingers. His mind raced, trying to process. Domestic violence, threats, a dangerous ex-partner. She hadn't just been running from death. She'd been running from someone who wanted to destroy her. The apartment door opened. Simone came in, saw him sitting at the table with papers scattered around him, the letter in his lap. Her face went white. You weren't supposed to find those. Why didn't you tell me this? His voice was harsh, anger and fear mixing. There's someone out there who threatened you, who threatened our family, and you kept it secret. I was protecting you, that's what you keep saying. But keeping secrets isn't protection, Simone. It's control. It's making decisions for other people like they can't handle the truth. She sank into a chair, one hand on her belly. He's dangerous, Colby. He put me in the hospital twice before I got away. Broken ribs, concussion, dislocated shoulder. I have a restraining order, but it didn't matter. He found ways around it. Is he still looking for you? I don't know. I've been using my maiden name, staying invisible. No social media, no public records. The hospitals know me as Sarah Chen for privacy protection. But I'm terrified that when Arya is born, when there's a birth certificate, he'll find me. Colby stood, paced to the window. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. Inside, his world was tilting again. We need to go to the police. I tried that before. He has connections, money. lawyers who made me look unstable. The restraining order was useless. So what? We just hide. Live in fear? I don't know. Her voice broke. I've been trying to figure it out for years. That's why I left. That's why I stayed away even after I survived. I thought if he believed I was dead or gone forever, you'd all be safe. Colby turned to face her. But you're not dead. You're here. And if he finds out, I know. That's what terrifies me. Giving birth in a hospital, registering Arya's birth, it leaves a trail. What if he follows it? Then we deal with it together, not you alone, not you running, together. How? I don't know yet, but we figure it out. We get better legal help. We talk to people who handle these situations. We protect our family. He knelt in front of her chair. But no more secrets, Simone. No more running alone. You have to trust me. She grabbed his hands, tears streaming down her face. I'm so scared. I know, me too. But we face it together. That night Colby couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind running through scenarios. This Derek person, what if he really did find them? What if Arya's birth led him straight to their door? He thought about Bennett, about Arya, about everything they stood to lose. And he made a decision. Tomorrow he'd talk to Eugene and Russell. They'd figure out a plan. They'd keep his family safe, whatever it took. Because running hadn't worked. Hiding hadn't worked. The only way forward was to face the threat head-on. 3 days before Arya's due date, Colby moved Simone temporarily to Eugene's house. His brother's place was more secluded, harder to find, and Eugene had agreed immediately when Colby explained the situation. No one threatens my family, Eugene had said, his jaw set firm. She stays here as long as she needs to. We'll keep her safe. Russell used his connections from his years in the military to arrange a meeting with Detective Warren, a 58-year-old veteran of the police force who specialized in domestic violence cases. They met at a quiet diner on the edge of town, away from the station, where they could talk without drawing attention. Warren listened to Simone's story with the focused attention of someone who'd heard too many similar tales. He reviewed the old police reports she'd brought, the hospital records documenting her injuries from years ago, the restraining order that had expired and been ineffective even when it was active. This Derek Stillwater, he's got a record, Warren said, pulling up information on his tablet. Assault, stalking, violation of restraining orders. Served 6 months 3 years ago, been quiet since then. That doesn't mean he's reformed. Usually means he's learned to be more careful about leaving evidence. Can you help us? Colby asked, trying to keep the desperation out of his voice. We can file new reports, update restraining orders with current information, have patrol cars increase presence in your neighborhoods. But I'll be honest with you, if he's determined and clever, these are just paper barriers. They give us legal grounds to arrest him if he violates them, but they don't create a physical shield. So we're just sitting ducks, waiting for him to make a move. No, you're aware and prepared, which is half the battle. We'll do everything legally possible. I'll personally make sure every officer in this district knows his face and the situation. Any report with his name gets escalated directly to me. Warren looked directly at Simone with compassion. You did nothing wrong. This man's actions are his responsibility, not yours. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. She nodded, but Colby could see the fear in her eyes hadn't diminished even slightly. They filed the paperwork that afternoon at the police station. New restraining order, updated with current addresses and detailed information about the pregnancy and the expected due date. Detective Warren assured them he'd flagged Derek's name in every system. Any activity would trigger immediate alerts to multiple departments. The process took hours. Forms to sign, statements to give, photographs of old injuries that Simone had kept hidden for years, submitted as evidence. She had to recount the abuse in clinical detail, the first time Derek hit her, the escalation over months, the hospital visits she'd lied about, saying she'd fallen downstairs or walked into doors or had a clumsy accident. Colby sat beside her through all of it, his jaw tight, rage simmering beneath his carefully controlled exterior. Why didn't the restraining order work before? Colby asked Warren as they finished the last of the paperwork. He was clever about it. never violated it directly where we could prove it in court. He operated through intermediaries, stayed just outside the legally restricted distance, made contact through untraceable means. But this time we'll be smarter, and with attempted contact while there's an active order, we can act immediately and decisively. But that night, everything changed in an instant. They were at Eugene's house, sitting down to a quiet dinner that no one really had an appetite for. Bennett was staying with Russell and his wife for the entire week, both to keep him safe and to shield him from the tension that hung over everything like a storm cloud. Simone had barely touched her food, pushing pasta around her plate with mechanical movements, her mind clearly elsewhere. Her phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. She stared at it, her face draining of all color in seconds. "What is it?" Colby asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. She showed him the text message with shaking hands. "I know where you are." His blood ran cold. 4 simple words that shattered every fragile sense of security they'd managed to build. Eugene leaned over to read the message, his expression darkening with anger and concern. "Block the number right now. Call Detective Warren immediately." Simone's hands trembled so badly she could barely hold the phone, let alone dial. Colby took it from her gently and made the call himself. Warren answered on the second ring, and within minutes, the wheels of law enforcement were in motion. Trace the number, dispatch officers to Eugene's address, activate emergency protocols, alert neighboring jurisdictions. Warren arrived within 30 minutes, his unmarked car pulling up quietly in the driveway. He examined the phone carefully, took screenshots of the message, ran traces through systems Colby didn't understand. The number was a burner phone, untraceable to a specific person or location, but the message itself was crystal clear. Derek had found her somehow. "How?" Simone asked, her voice shaking with fear and exhaustion. "I've been so careful. No social media presence, different name at hospitals, minimal digital footprint. I've done everything right. Hospital records get hacked. Public databases get sold. Facial recognition software gets more sophisticated every day. There are a dozen ways he could have tracked you down," Warren said grimly. "What matters now is keeping you safe until that baby arrives. I'm stationing 2 officers outside this house tonight. Plainclothes, unmarked cars. If he shows up anywhere near this property, we'll be ready and waiting. And if he doesn't show up here," Colby asked, "if he's just watching from a distance, waiting for a better opportunity, then we wait too. And we stay vigilant every single moment." That night, Colby barely slept at all. He sat in Eugene's living room with a baseball bat across his lap, watching the windows like a sentry, jumping at every small sound. The house creaked and settled in the darkness. Outside, wind rustled through trees, making shadows dance across the walls. Car headlights occasionally swept across the windows as vehicles passed on the distant road, each one making his heart race until he confirmed it was just ordinary traffic. Eugene took the first shift with him, sitting quietly until midnight, then insisted Colby try to get at least a few hours of rest. But rest was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Derek's face from the old photographs Simone had shown him, those cold, calculating eyes, that cruel twist of mouth, the face of a man who'd systematically broken the woman Colby had once loved. Simone couldn't sleep either. He could hear her pacing the guest room upstairs, her footsteps making the old floorboards creak, one hand undoubtedly on her belly, whispering reassurances to Arya that everything would be all right, even though neither of them knew if that was true. At 4 a.m, unable to stand the separation, he went upstairs and knocked softly on her door. "Come in," she called, her voice thick with unshed tears. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed despite the hour, eyes red-rimmed from crying. He sat beside her without speaking, and she leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "We're going to get through this," he said firmly. "How can you possibly know that?" "Because we have to. Because Arya needs us to. Because Bennett deserves a world where his mother and sister are safe. Because I won't let that man win after everything you've survived." She leaned against him harder, exhausted in every way a person can be exhausted. "I'm so tired of being afraid all the time. I thought when the tumor was gone, when I survived, that the fear would end. But it never really ends, does it? Soon it will. I promise you. Soon you won't have to be afraid anymore. The next morning arrived, grey and overcast. Simone woke with contractions, mild at first, then steadily intensifying. "It's too soon," she gasped, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, her face pale. "She's not due for 3 more days. This can't be happening now." "Stress can trigger early labor," Eugene said, already grabbing his car keys from the hook by the door. "We need to get you to the hospital right now." Colby's mind raced through implications. Hospital meant public records, birth certificate with names and addresses, a paper trail leading straight to them. But they had no choice. Aria was coming whether the timing was convenient or not, whether they were ready or not. He called Detective Warren during the drive, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We're heading to County General." Labor started. "She's in active labor. I'll have plainclothes officers there within the hour. Hospital security will be briefed about the situation. We'll watch every entrance and exit." At the hospital, they checked Simone in under her legal name, but with a privacy flag on all her records. The charge nurse, a woman in her 50s with kind but no-nonsense eyes, listened to their situation and nodded with the seriousness it deserved. "We take these threats very seriously here. Security will be notified immediately. No unauthorized visitors allowed on this floor. No exceptions." Colby stayed by Simone's side while Eugene handled logistics outside, coordinating with Detective Warren, talking to security personnel, mentally mapping exits and stairwells. Russell arrived an hour later with his wife, offering support and an extra set of watchful, experienced eyes. "Where's Bennett?" Simone asked between contractions, her face twisted with pain. "Safe at our house with Patricia, playing video games and eating pizza. He doesn't know anything's wrong. As far as he knows, his baby sister just decided to arrive a few days early. Good. I don't want him scared. Not about any of this." Labor progressed steadily and relentlessly. 4 centimeters, then 6, then 8. The pain intensified with each hour. Simone gripped Colby's hand so hard he lost circulation in his fingers, but he didn't complain or pull away. His eyes kept darting to the door, to the windows, scanning for threats in every shadow and movement. A nurse noticed his constant vigilance. "Security's very tight on this floor. Multiple officers stationed at key points. You're as safe here as anywhere. Try to focus on your partner and the baby." But how could he focus when every footstep in the hallway made his heart race? Every time the door opened, he tensed, muscles coiled and ready to throw himself between Simone and any danger. The room felt simultaneously too exposed and too confined. Eugene's text arrived, "Suspicious vehicle in parking lot." Warren and officers checking it out now. Colby's jaw tightened painfully. He showed the text to Simone, who was between contractions, breathing hard and trying to stay calm. "He's here," she whispered with absolute certainty. "I know he is. I can feel it. He's close. We won't let him near you or Aria, I swear it." 20 agonizing minutes later, Eugene texted again. "False alarm. Wrong vehicle, different person entirely." But everyone's staying alert. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. Simone's labor intensified, her body working toward the inevitable. 9 centimeters. The nurses began preparing the delivery room in earnest, bringing equipment, adjusting monitors, speaking in calm, professional tones. Colby tried desperately to focus on being present for her. For this moment they'd never get back. But half his attention remained fixed on protecting them from a threat that might materialize at any second. Detective Warren appeared in the doorway, his face grave and urgent. "We found him." Derek Stillwater was spotted near the hospital main entrance wearing a fake security badge, hospital logo, proper lanyard, everything professionally made. Our officers intercepted him before he could reach the elevators to the maternity ward. He fought back and managed to escape in the confusion. "He's still somewhere in this building. We're searching floor by floor, but he's still out there." Colby's heart hammered against his ribs. "Lock this door now." "Already done." Officer posted directly outside with orders to let no one pass. He won't get near this room, but Colby couldn't relax even slightly. The man who'd beaten Simone, who'd threatened their family, who'd terrorized her for years. He was somewhere in this very building, hunting, searching, getting closer with every passing moment. Simone cried out, a contraction stronger than all the others. The nurse checked quickly, efficiently. "She's ready. 10 centimeters. It's time to push." "I can't do this," Simone gasped, fear mixing with physical pain. "Not with him out there hunting us." "Yes, you can." Colby gripped both her hands, forced her to look directly into his eyes. "Focus only on me. Focus only on Arya. Nothing else exists in this moment. Just us, just this, just bringing our daughter safely into the world." The doctor arrived, projecting calm professionalism despite the chaos outside. "Let's bring this baby into the world." Simone pushed with everything she had left. The nurse cleaned Arya quickly with practiced efficiency, her hands gentle but thorough, despite the urgency of the situation. She wrapped the baby in a soft hospital blanket and placed her carefully on Simone's chest. Colby stared, completely overwhelmed by the moment despite everything else happening. She was perfect in every way, tiny fingers that gripped reflexively at air, dark hair plastered wet against her small head, eyes squeezed tightly shut against the bright lights of the delivery room. "You did it," he whispered to Simone, his voice breaking with emotion. "She's here. She's really here. You brought her safely into the world," Simone sobbed, holding Arya close against her chest, her exhausted body shaking with relief and joy and lingering fear. "She's so beautiful. Look at her, Colby. Look at what we created together." For 10 precious minutes, there was genuine peace. The world narrowed to just the three of them, Colby, Simone, and their newborn daughter, making her first sounds in a world that had almost claimed her before she could arrive. He cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, watched the nurses perform their quick assessments, listened to Arya's healthy cries that announced her arrival with impressive volume. Then Eugene burst back into the room, his expression urgent and frightened. He escaped from custody. The 2 words shattered the fragile bubble of joy like a hammer through glass. Colby's head snapped toward his brother. "What do you mean he escaped?" "Derek. He fought off the 2 officers who tried to detain him on the 3rd floor. Caught them completely off guard when they attempted to handcuff him. He threw one officer into a wall hard enough to knock him unconscious, got away in the resulting confusion. Security's searching every floor methodically, but he's still somewhere inside this building." Simone clutched Arya tighter against her chest, her eyes going wide with primal terror. No, this can't be happening, not now. Not with her just born. Everyone needs to stay calm," Detective Warren said, appearing behind Eugene, slightly out of breath from running. "We have every single exit covered now. Multiple officers at each one. He's effectively trapped inside this building with us. Every stairwell, every elevator, every door leading outside, we have armed officers stationed. It's only a matter of time before we corner him and take him into custody." But Colby couldn't stay calm, couldn't even pretend to be calm. His daughter was mere minutes old, still covered in the evidence of birth, her tiny body vulnerable in ways that terrified him. His ex-wife was exhausted and weak, barely able to stand, let alone defend herself. And the man who'd terrorized them, who'd put Simone in the hospital with broken bones and a concussion, was somewhere in these sterile corridors, desperately searching for them. He stood abruptly, every muscle in his body tense and ready for violence if necessary. "I'm going out there to find him before he finds us." "Colby, no!" Simone started, reaching for him with one hand, while cradling Arya protectively with the other. "I'm not letting him get anywhere near you. Not near either of you. Not after everything." He looked hard at Eugene. "Stay with them. Lock this door the second I leave. Don't open it for anyone except medical staff you personally recognize and trust." Eugene nodded grimly, understanding the complete gravity of the situation. "I've got them. You have my word. He'll have to go through me first, and that won't be easy." Colby kissed Simone's forehead tenderly, touched Arya's tiny head with trembling fingers, trying to memorize the feeling, then followed Detective Warren into the hallway. The maternity ward had completely transformed into something tense and dangerous. Hospital security personnel stood at careful intervals, their radios crackling constantly with updates. Nurses' stations were locked down tight. Parents and newborns were secured safely in their rooms behind closed and locked doors. "He's desperate now," Warren said, as they moved quickly down the corridor. "Desperate men make mistakes. They act purely on emotion instead of logic and planning. That desperation gives us a tactical advantage if we're smart." They checked empty rooms methodically and carefully, supply closets filled with medical equipment, patient rooms waiting for new occupancy, consultation offices left dark. Other officers searched different floors simultaneously, their voices coming through Warren's radio in clipped, professional tones. The hospital felt like an impossible maze, endless corridors branching into even more corridors. Stairwells connecting floors in confusing patterns designed for efficiency rather than clarity. Colby's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat, hear it rushing in his ears. Somewhere in these walls, Derek Stillwater was moving, searching, getting potentially closer to the woman he'd once terrorized. And Colby was hunting him with equal determination. They reached the main stairwell. Warren pushed through the heavy fire door, his service weapon drawn and held in proper position. "Stay directly behind me. You're a civilian. If shooting starts, you get down immediately and stay down." "Understood." "Understood completely." The concrete stairwell echoed eerily with their careful footsteps as they descended. Down one flight, then another, checking each landing thoroughly. Nothing but empty stairs and the constant hum of building ventilation. Then Warren's radio crackled urgently to life. "Suspect spotted. 5th floor, east wing, moving quickly toward the elevator bank. White male, mid-40s, jeans and dark jacket. Appears agitated and searching for something." They ran without hesitation. Back up the stairs, through the 5th floor entrance, down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. Ahead, Colby finally saw him, the man from all the photographs Simone had reluctantly shown him. Derek Stillwater in actual flesh, moving with purpose, checking room numbers methodically like he was hunting for something very specific. Derek Stillwater. "Police, stop where you are immediately!" Warren shouted with absolute authority, his voice echoing down the corridor. Derek spun fast, saw them approaching, and his face contorted with rage, mixed with desperate determination. For one frozen heartbeat, they locked eyes. Colby and this man who'd systematically broken the woman he'd once promised to love forever. Then Derek ran at full speed. Colby chased without any conscious thought, his body moving purely on instinct and protective fury. Warren was close behind, shouting commands that Derek completely ignored. They rounded a corner at dangerous speed. Derek grabbed a supply cart and shoved it violently backward into their path. Medical supplies, IV bags, instruments scattered across the floor in a cascade of obstacles designed to slow them down. Colby hurdled it without breaking his stride, his construction work having kept him surprisingly fit despite his age. And adrenaline pushed him even faster than he knew he could move. Derek reached the stairwell door ahead of them, yanked it open with force. Colby caught up just as Derek entered the stairwell, grabbed hard at the back of his jacket with both hands. They struggled violently in the doorway. Derek threw wild, desperate punches. One connected solidly with Colby's jaw, pain exploding through his face like lightning. Stars burst across his vision. But Colby refused to let go, driven by something deeper than pain or fear. He shoved Derek hard against the concrete wall, using his weight and momentum. "You don't get to hurt them anymore," Colby growled through gritted teeth, tasting copper blood in his mouth. "You hear me? You're finished. She's mine!" Derek spat back, still fighting like a cornered animal. "That baby could be mine. She was pregnant when she left me. You're completely insane. She left you years before we even met. That's my daughter, my family, and you're never getting near them again." Warren arrived and grabbed Derek's arms with professional efficiency, wrenching them behind his back, despite Derek's continued struggling. The metallic click of handcuffs was the most beautiful sound Colby had ever heard in his entire life. "Derek Stillwater, you're under arrest," Warren said coldly and officially. "Assault on multiple police officers, attempted assault, stalking, trespassing, resisting arrest." You have the right to remain silent. Derek fought against the restraints violently, cursing and spitting threats and delusional accusations. I'll find her again. You can't keep me away forever. She belongs to me. That baby is mine. The only place you're going is prison, Warren said. For a very, very long time. 2 more officers arrived quickly, took physical custody of Derek. They dragged him down the stairs, his voice echoing off concrete walls as he continued shouting threats until a door slammed somewhere far below. Finally cutting off his disturbing rants mid-sentence, Colby leaned heavily against the wall, his legs suddenly unsteady beneath him. Adrenaline drained away like water through a broken dam, leaving him shaky and cold and slightly nauseous. His jaw throbbed intensely where Derek had struck him. His hands trembled uncontrollably. But it was over. Derek was finally in custody and going nowhere. Warren clapped his shoulder supportively. You all right? That was a solid hit you took. Yeah, I'm fine. Colby touched his jaw carefully, winced at the sharp pain. Is it really over this time? For now and probably permanently. We've got him on multiple serious charges. With what happened here today, his extensive prior record, the restraining order violations, he's looking at very serious prison time. Real time, not a slap on the wrist. I'll make absolutely sure the district attorney pushes for maximum sentencing. He'll be locked away where he can't hurt anyone for many years. Colby nodded, still too exhausted and overwhelmed to fully process everything. They walked back to the maternity ward slowly, deliberately. The tension in the hallways had noticeably eased already. Security remained present and alert, but the immediate crisis atmosphere had lifted like fog burning off in morning sun. Nurses were cautiously resuming their normal activities. The lockdown procedures were being carefully lifted floor by floor. At Simone's room, Eugene opened the door cautiously, then visibly relaxed when he saw them safely returned. Inside, Simone still sat propped up in the hospital bed, Aria sleeping peacefully in her arms, despite all the chaos that had swirled around her first moments of life. She looked up when Colby entered, her eyes desperately searching his face for answers, reading the truth before he could speak it aloud. Is he in custody? Being transported to the station right now under heavy guard? It's over, Simone. It's finally, truly over. She closed her eyes tightly, and tears streamed down her exhausted face, not from fear anymore, but from relief so overwhelming and profound it looked almost like physical pain. Thank God. Thank God, I can't believe it's finally over. Colby sank heavily into the chair beside her bed, his body suddenly feeling impossibly heavy, like gravity had doubled its pull on him. The adrenaline crash hit him hard and fast all at once. His hands shook visibly. His jaw ached with deep throbbing pain where Derek had connected. His chest felt tight with emotions he couldn't fully name or process. Eugene quietly excused himself, understanding instinctively that they needed privacy. Closing the door with a soft, respectful click behind him, Simone reached for Colby's hand with her free one. Being careful not to disturb sleeping Aria, you saved us. Again, you keep saving us when I don't deserve it. Don't say that. He squeezed her fingers gently but firmly. You don't have to thank me for protecting my own family. That's just what you do. Look at your face. He hit you so hard. Let me see how bad it is. A nurse entered right on cue with ice wrapped in a clean towel, her expression sympathetic and professional. For your jaw, sir. You're going to have quite an impressive bruise, but nothing appears to be broken from what I can see. If the pain worsens significantly or you have trouble moving your jaw, definitely let us know immediately. Colby pressed the ice to his face, the shocking cold somehow grounding and welcome against the pain. He watched Aria sleep so peacefully, completely unaware of the danger that had surrounded her arrival, so tiny and perfect and vulnerable. The horrifying idea that Derek had wanted to harm her, to use her as leverage against Simone, to claim her as his own, through twisted logic and delusional violence, it made rage flare hot and protective in his chest all over again. But Derek was gone now. Truly gone. Locked away securely where he couldn't hurt anyone they loved ever again. Hours passed in the quiet rhythm of the hospital room. The crisis had ended, but its echoes lingered in the tension of Colby's shoulders, in the way Simone kept glancing at the door, in the protective way she held Arya even in sleep. Nurses came and went with practiced efficiency, checking vital signs, teaching Simone how to nurse, bringing warm blankets and gentle encouragement, offering pain medication that Simone accepted gratefully. Eugene returned with coffee and sandwiches from the hospital cafeteria. Though neither Colby nor Simone had much appetite, the food sat mostly untouched on the rolling table while they watched Arya sleep, counting her breaths, marveling at the tiny life they'd created and nearly lost before she'd even taken her first breath. "You should eat something," Eugene said quietly to Colby. "You look like you're about to fall over." "I'm fine. You're not fine. You just got punched in the face and chased a dangerous man through a hospital." "Eat the sandwich." Colby managed a few bites to appease his brother, but his stomach was still twisted in knots. The adrenaline might have faded, but the weight of what could have happened pressed down on him like a physical force. Around midnight, after the shift change brought new nurses with fresh faces and kind words, Russell arrived with Bennett. The boy had been told his sister was born, but nothing about Derek or the danger or the chaos that had surrounded her arrival. He burst into the room with wide eyes and barely contained excitement, his energy electric in the quiet space. "Can I see her? Can I hold her? Is she really here?" "Gentle," Colby warned, standing to guide Bennett to the chair beside Simone's bed. "She's very small, and she's sleeping." Simone carefully transferred Arya into Bennett's waiting arms, supporting the baby's head with her own hands until Bennett had her secured. He stared down at his sister with an expression of pure wonder, his young face suddenly serious with the weight of responsibility and love. "Hi, Arya," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'm your big brother, Bennett. I'm going to take care of you forever and ever. I'm going to teach you everything I know, and I'll protect you from anything scary, and we're going to have so much fun together." Colby's throat tightened painfully. He glanced at Simone and saw tears sliding down her cheeks, her exhausted face transformed by joy and gratitude. This moment, their two children together, their family fractured but healing. Their son promising protection to his newborn sister was worth every painful step that had led them here. Bennett asked questions in rapid succession, his curiosity endless. "Why is she so tiny? When can she come home? Can she sleep in my room? Does she know I'm her brother? What does she eat? Can babies see when they're born? Will she like dinosaurs?" They answered patiently, taking turns explaining newborn schedules and living arrangements and the way babies grow and learn. Bennett listened intently, occasionally looking down at Arya like she might disappear if he looked away too long, his arms careful and protective around her small body. "She's perfect," Bennett said finally. "The most perfect sister in the whole world." "She is," Colby agreed. "And you're the most perfect big brother." Eventually, exhaustion claimed Bennett. His questions slowed, his eyelids drooped, and within an hour he was asleep in the reclining chair, his mouth slightly open, his features relaxed in the innocent peace of childhood. Russell carefully extracted Arya from his arms and returned her to Simone, then lifted Bennett with surprising ease. "I'll take him to the waiting room couch where he can stretch out properly," Russell said quietly. Poor kid's worn out from the excitement. After Russell left, the room fell into a deeper quiet. Just Colby, Simone, and Arya. The machines beeped their steady rhythms. Outside the window, the city lights twinkled in the darkness like distant stars. The world continuing its rotation, oblivious to the small miracles and near tragedies happening in hospital rooms. "What are you thinking?" Simone asked, her voice soft and tired. Colby had been standing at the window, his hands in his pockets, watching the occasional car pass on the street below. He turned to face her. "About how far we've come. 6 weeks ago, I saw you on that street corner, and my whole world flipped upside down. I was angry, confused, hurt. Now I'm standing in a hospital room with our newborn daughter, and somehow, despite everything, despite the secrets and the fear and the danger, it feels right. Right? Yeah, complicated and messy and nothing like I imagined, but right. Simone shifted in the hospital bed, wincing slightly from the soreness of birth. "Colby, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me, even if the answer is hard. Okay. Do you think—" She paused, choosing her words with visible care. "Do you think you'll ever really forgive me? Not just say the words because it's the right thing to do, but actually feel it in your heart. Actually let go of what I did." He moved to sit in the chair beside her bed, close enough to see the exhaustion in her eyes, the vulnerability that childbirth and fear had stripped bare. "I've been thinking about that question a lot lately. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip once, and it's done forever. It's more like peeling back layers, one at a time. Each day I understand a little more about why you did what you did. Each time I see you with Bennett, each time I look at Arya, I feel a little less angry and a little more at peace with what happened. But do you think you can truly forgive? Or will there always be a part of you that resents what I took from you?" He reached for her hand, held it gently. "I may never forget what happened. Those 2 years you were gone, the not knowing, the pain Bennett carried, that's part of our history now. But I'm letting go of the weight of it. I'm choosing to believe you made the best decision you could with the information and fear you had. That's forgiveness, I think. Not erasing the past, but refusing to let it poison the future. I don't deserve your kindness. Maybe not. Maybe I don't deserve yours either, for all the ways I've been closed off and guarded. But Arya deserves a father who shows up. Bennett deserves parents who can be in the same room without tension and bitterness. That's bigger than what either of us individually deserves. What about us?" She asked the question carefully, almost afraid of the answer. Not as parents or co-parents, but as people. As the two people who once loved each other enough to get married and build a life together. Colby was quiet for a long moment, gathering his thoughts. "I don't think we can go back to what we were. Too much has happened. Too much hurt, too much time, too many changes. The people we were when we got married don't exist anymore. We've both been through fire and we came out different, so there's no hope for us?" "I didn't say that." He squeezed her hand. "I just think we need to let go of trying to rebuild what was broken. Instead, maybe we build something new. Something different. Maybe better, even if it looks nothing like what we had before. What would that look like? I don't know yet. Maybe we're friends who share children. Maybe we're partners in raising this family. Maybe somewhere down the road, after more healing, we're something else entirely. But we don't have to decide that tonight. We just have to commit to showing up, being honest, and putting these kids first." Simone's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that. Building something new, together." They sat in companionable silence, watching Arya sleep in her mother's arms. Her tiny chest rose and fell with perfect regularity. Her fingers occasionally twitched as she dreamed whatever newborns dream. She was perfect and terrifying and full of infinite possibility. Detective Warren appeared in the doorway, knocking softly to announce his presence. "Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to give you a final update before I head out for the night." "Please, come in," Colby said. Warren entered, looking tired but satisfied. "Derek's been formally charged. Assault on an officer, attempted kidnapping, stalking, violation of restraining order, trespassing, and resisting arrest. The prosecutor is pushing for maximum sentencing given his prior record and the severity of today's incident. With everything stacked against him, he's looking at 10 to 15 years minimum, possibly more." Relief flooded through Colby like a wave. "And when he eventually gets out, we'll make sure comprehensive monitoring is in place. Electronic tracking, strict parole conditions, immediate alerts if he comes within 500 yards of any address associated with your family. And I'll personally ensure the case file stays flagged as high risk. My number will be in the system. He won't get near your family again without us knowing immediately." "Thank you," Simone said, her voice thick with emotion. "For everything. For believing me, for helping us, for keeping us safe." Warren nodded with genuine warmth. "It's what we're supposed to do. You did nothing wrong, and you deserve to live without fear. Get some rest now. You've earned it." After he left, Simone exhaled deeply, a breath she seemed to have been holding for years. "It's really over." Derek's locked away. "We're safe. I can stop looking over my shoulder. Not entirely, Colby cautioned gently. We stay alert, keep the protective orders current, remain security conscious. But yeah, the immediate threat is gone. You can breathe now. I can breathe, she repeated, testing the words. I can raise Arya without fear. I can be in Bennett's life without constantly watching for danger. I can actually live. The night deepened around them. Nurses encouraged Colby to go home, to rest in his own bed, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. Eugene brought him a pillow and blanket, understanding without words being spoken, and Colby settled into the reclining chair beside Simone's bed. You don't have to stay, Simone said. I want to. I need to know you're both safe. Around 3 a.m, Arya woke crying, a thin, reedy sound that seemed impossibly loud in the quiet room. Simone tried to nurse her, fumbling with positioning, but the baby wouldn't latch properly. Frustration mounted. Hormones and exhaustion overwhelmed Simone's composure, and she started crying too. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't even feed my own baby. What kind of mother can't do this basic thing? Hey, none of that! Colby stood, pressed the call button for the nurse. This is normal. Bennett gave you trouble at first too, remember? A nurse arrived within minutes. A woman in her 40s, with laugh lines around her eyes and the competence of decades of experience. She sat beside Simone with infinite patience, showing her how to position Arya differently, how to support her head, how to help the baby find the right angle. After 20 minutes of gentle coaching, Arya latched and began nursing contentedly, her tiny hands kneading against Simone's skin. There you go, the nurse said warmly. See, you're doing beautifully. It just takes practice and patience. Every baby is different. Every feeding is a learning experience. You're going to be just fine. After the nurse left, Simone looked at Colby with gratitude shining through her tears. Thank you for staying. For not leaving when things got hard. For being here through all of it. That's what family does. We show up. Are we family? Colby looked at Arya nursing peacefully. Thought about Bennett sleeping in the waiting room, about the messy, complicated, beautiful reality they'd built from ruins and wreckage. Yeah, we are. Not the way we planned, not the way we imagined, but maybe that's better. Maybe this version is stronger because we know exactly what it took to build it. Stronger because it's honest? Exactly. No illusions about perfect romance or fairy tale endings. Just two people committed to doing right by their children and by each other. That's more real than what we had before. Simone smiled through her exhaustion. I like that version of family. As dawn broke over the city, painting the hospital room in shades of gold and pink, Colby felt something fundamental shift inside him. Not forgiveness exactly. That would take more time, more conversations, more proof that trust could be rebuilt. But the beginning of forgiveness, the willingness to try. Their family would never be traditional or simple. But it would be theirs, built on honesty and hard-won understanding. And perhaps that was worth more than any fairy tale ending. 6 months later, life had found its rhythm. Not the rhythm Colby had known before Simone returned, and certainly not the rhythm of their old marriage. Something entirely new, something that actually worked. Simone lived in a small apartment 3 blocks from Colby's place, close enough for Bennett to walk between homes when the weather was nice. Far enough for both adults to maintain their independence and breathing room. Colby had helped with the security deposit and first month's rent. Money he'd saved from Russell's unexpected bonus and the extra shifts he'd worked through winter. Her apartment had proper locks on every window, a security system that sent alerts to both their phones, and neighbors who'd been briefed about the situation and knew to watch for anything suspicious. Derek remained in prison. His trial concluded 2 months after Arya's birth. The judge had thrown the book at him, 15 years with no possibility of parole for the first 10. Detective Warren had kept his word, ensuring the case file remained flagged as high priority, with alerts set for any future threat should Derek ever be released. It was a Saturday morning in April when Colby picked up Bennett and Arya for their weekly family outing. Spring had arrived early that year, warming the city and painting the trees with new green leaves and pink blossoms. The air smelled like fresh beginnings. Simone met them at Riverside Park, the same place where she and Bennett had first reunited all those months ago. Bennett ran ahead to the playground, confident enough now to explore on his own, stopping occasionally to wave back at them. 9 years old now, taller, missing another tooth, but still the same sweet kid who'd drawn pictures of a family he'd thought was broken forever. Colby pushed Arya's stroller along the paved path while Simone walked beside him. The baby gazed up at the sky with those striking green eyes she'd inherited from her mother and brother, tracking the clouds and birds with intense infant fascination. At 6 months old, she was becoming a person, laughing at funny faces, reaching for things she wanted, responding to her name with delighted squeals. "She's getting so big," Colby said, watching his daughter grab at a toy dangling from the stroller canopy. "Feels like yesterday she was born. All that chaos and fear, and now look at her. Happy, healthy, perfect. 6 months tomorrow," Simone said with a soft smile. "Half a year of figuring this out. Half a year of actually getting it right. How's it going for you? Really? No sugarcoating?" She considered the question thoughtfully. "Good. Better than I expected, honestly. The therapy helps enormously. Learning to talk about the trauma instead of carrying it alone. Learning that asking for help isn't weakness. It's made all the difference." They'd both started seeing counselors shortly after Arya's birth. Simone for trauma recovery and PTSD from the abuse. Colby for processing trust issues and learning healthier communication patterns. It had been Russell's suggestion, delivered gently one evening over beers, and Colby had resisted at first. Real men didn't need therapy, his father would have said. But Russell had looked him dead in the eye and said, real men do whatever it takes to heal and be better for their families. So Colby went, and slowly, week by week, he learned that healing required more than time. It required intentional work, uncomfortable conversations, and the willingness to examine his own failures alongside Simone's. Eugene joined them at the park with his wife, Patricia, carrying a large picnic basket packed with sandwiches, fruit, chips, and homemade cookies. They spread a blanket on the grass under an old oak tree, while Bennett played on the nearby swings. Arya sat propped between pillows on the blanket, grabbing at grass and giggling when it tickled her palms. "She's got your laugh," Eugene told Colby, watching Arya discover the joy of pulling up grass in tiny fistfuls. "That same surprised, delighted sound you made as a baby. Mom used to say you laughed like every funny thing was the first funny thing you'd ever experienced." Colby picked up his daughter, lifted her high above his head, and brought her down gently. She squealed with pure delight, her whole body wiggling with excitement. His heart swelled so much it almost hurt. Being a father again at 50 had been completely unexpected, occasionally exhausting. But he wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. After lunch, Bennett ran back to them, breathless and excited, grass stains on his knees. "Can we go see the ducks, please? I saved some bread from my sandwich." They walked together as a group to the small lake at the park's edge, Colby carrying Arya, Simone's hand resting lightly on Bennett's shoulder, Eugene and Patricia following behind with quiet contentment. Ducks paddled near the shore, and Bennett threw pieces of bread with careful aim, narrating each duck's personality to his baby sister. "See that one, Arya? That's Gerald. He's the boss duck. And that little one is Penelope. She's shy, but really nice once you get to know her." Simone caught Colby's eye and smiled. He smiled back, and something passed between them. Not romantic love, not anymore, but something deeper and more resilient. Partnership, respect, shared commitment to the family they'd built from wreckage. "Remember when we used to come here?" Simone said quietly so only Colby could hear. "Before everything fell apart? We'd bring Bennett when he was 2-3 years old. He'd chase the ducks until he fell over from dizziness. I remember." Colby shifted Arya to his other arm. "We were different people then. Younger, more naive. We thought we had everything figured out. Do you miss it? Miss who we were?" He thought about that honestly. "Sometimes. But I don't think we can go back, and maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe the point was to go through all that pain and come out different. Better even. Better how? More honest. More aware of how fragile things are. Less likely to take each other for granted." He watched Bennett try to get a duck to eat from his hand. "We know now what it costs to lose each other, That makes what we have more valuable. What do we have exactly? A family. Not traditional, not simple, but real. Built on truth this time, instead of assumptions. 2 weeks later, they made a decision together. A family portrait. Professional photographs to mark where they were now. To document this chapter that felt like both an ending and a beginning. The photography studio was small and warm, run by a patient photographer named Mrs. Chen, who specialized in family sessions and had a gift for making even the most reluctant subjects relax. She positioned them carefully, offering gentle suggestions. Colby holding Aria, Bennett standing between his parents with one hand on his father's shoulder and the other reaching up to touch his sister's foot. Simone's hand resting on her son's other shoulder. They were connected but not intertwined, together but still individuals. Perfect, Mrs. Chen said from behind her camera. Now everyone think of something that makes you genuinely happy. Not forced smiles, I want to see real joy. Colby looked at his children, Bennett grinning wide, still missing that front tooth he'd lost 3 weeks ago. Aria gurgling and reaching for her brother's fingers, her eyes bright with wonder at the world. Simone beside them, healthy and present and no longer haunted by the shadows of fear. This was happiness. Messy, complicated, hard-won happiness that meant more than easy joy ever could. The shutter clicked multiple times. Mrs. Chen checked her screen and smiled with satisfaction. Beautiful. These are definitely keepers. You've got something really special here. 2 weeks later, when the framed portrait arrived, Colby hung it in his living room, in the spot where an old landscape painting had been. This was better, this truthful capturing of their rebuilt family. Not perfect, not glossy, but authentic in ways that mattered. That evening, Bennett helped give Aria her bath, his hands gentle and patient, while Colby managed the actual washing. Bennett made funny faces that sent Aria into fits of giggles, water splashing everywhere, bath toys floating in cheerful chaos. Afterward, they settled on the couch for bedtime stories. Bennett had started reading to Aria every night she stayed with them, simple board books about animals and colors. He pointed at pictures with serious dedication, making sounds for each creature. Moo! That's a cow, Aria. Can you say moo? Moo! Aria blew a raspberry in response, which made Bennett dissolve into laughter, which made Aria laugh harder, which created a beautiful cycle of pure sibling joy. Later, after Bennett was asleep and Aria was fed and drowsy, Colby held his daughter in the rocking chair by the window. The city lights twinkled beyond the glass like earthbound stars. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, the shock of seeing Simone pregnant, the revelations about her illness and the abuse, the fear of Derek, the miracle of Aria's safe arrival. Your mom and I, he whispered to Aria, his voice barely audible. We're not perfect. We made mistakes, big ones. We hurt each other and ourselves. But we're trying to do better now. For you and for Bennett. That's all any parent can really do. Keep trying, keep loving, keep showing up even when it's hard. Aria's eyes drifted closed, her breathing deepening into the rhythm of sleep. Colby sat there holding her, reluctant to move and break the peaceful moment. His phone buzzed quietly with a text from Simone. Thank you for today, for every day, for giving us another chance. We're lucky to have you, he typed back with one hand. We're all lucky. We found our way back. Sleep well. Standing carefully so he wouldn't wake her, he carried Aria to the portable crib in his room. She'd stay tonight, go back to Simone's tomorrow afternoon. They'd worked out a schedule that gave everyone time together and time apart. Flexibility for life's unpredictability, and always Bennett's needs at the center of every decision. Colby retrieved the old wedding photograph from the back of his dresser drawer where it had lived for months. He looked at it one final time, at two young people full of certainty and unearned confidence, believing love alone would be enough. Then he placed it in a box at the back of his closet, wrapped in tissue paper. Not thrown away or destroyed, but archived. Part of history, not current reality. In its place, he put the new family portrait on his nightstand. 4 people who'd survived their own storms and found each other again on the other side. Not the same as they'd been, but together. Not perfect, but trying. Not a fairy tale, but something more valuable, something real. He climbed into bed, exhausted but deeply content. Tomorrow, Bennett had soccer practice at 9. Simone had a follow-up appointment at the hospital. Routine scans to ensure the cancer hadn't returned. Appointments that still made them both nervous, but had been clear every time. Eugene wanted help fixing a transmission in his shop. Russell was hosting a barbecue for the construction crew. Normal life. Beautiful, ordinary, complicated, normal life, filled with mundane concerns and small joys. Some wounds never fully heal, he thought as sleep began to claim him. They just learned to stay quiet, to stop demanding so much attention, to become part of your history instead of your present. But sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, those wounds teach you something profound about grace, about forgiveness, about what it really means to be a family. Not perfect, not painless. Not the story he'd imagined writing when he stood at an altar 20 years ago promising forever, but real, honest, hard-won, and therefore precious, and that was always, always enough.